And I didn't know, I just wanted to point this out if any members have concerns about this. Again, it hasn't come up in any committees yet, but just looking for input on whether or not you'd be concerned about excluding testosterone or any other drugs that might be controlled substances prescribed for those purposes. And I just know we have had a case where the committee had an investigation and they were concerned about telemedicine prescribing, and the one of the drugs involved was testosterone. So just mentioning that. I did want to take just 1 minute to not even to say that the note about 583 about healthcare financial transactions and clinical decision making during while we were waiting for people to get on. I mentioned this. Gail mentioned that she had watched it and found it fascinating. I found it fascinating. I think it would be a hit if only more people were to know about it. It's really an interesting watch. The link was in the memo that I sent out. H587 would give you all a raise. Just summarized it in there. It's a little bit complex. They calculate a livable wage based upon a report that the Joint Fiscal Office is tasked with putting out every year. And you would be paid either $50 or an hourly rate, which right now would be either $19.53 or $17.68 per hour. So today you would get more than $50 for sure. I think those are the only ones I really wanted to mention. So thank you.
Do we need to
for your patience?
There was also the PA bill for EEs. Is that something you wanted to mention or not?
I'm sorry, Matt. You said that
the bill for allowing physician assistants to sign off on first certificates for EEs, involuntaries.
Oh,
I think you put that on there.
Yeah, that's on there. It hasn't come up yet.
Okay.
Yeah, if anybody sees any concerns about that, it was I misplaced one page of my notes. But that was for the emergency medications.
I think it was for involuntary admissions.
Or involuntary admissions.
Currently, it has to be a physician who signs off on that, and there's a bunch of push to have PAs be allowed to sign off on that.
No. Oh, I didn't see that. The one that I had listed was an act relating to administration of involuntary psychiatric medication in emergency circumstances. And there haven't been any hearings on it yet. It proposes a process for approval to provide involuntary medication for up to 72 hours when an application for an order authorizing involuntary medication has been submitted but has not been acted on.
No, that's a different one too. Okay,
oh,
that's fine.
Yeah, I was approached by the one that Matt is talking about by some PAs that work at Mount Scottney where there's might not be a physician and
right.
They needed to do the involuntary. And then the other thing I would just point out is that we actually did use VPMS in the South Committee when we had to investigate whether a patient who was being prescribed testosterone, we compared VPMS prescribing to the office notes and the labs to see if they were being monitored. So it has come in. In handy, even though I don't know.
Evan?
I guess I if there is interest in that one, the other thought that I had was that testosterone can be a drug that's abused, especially like for people who want it for working out, bodybuilding, etc. And if, I'm not saying that the people that would be getting it prescribed for legitimate purposes, are likely to be abusing it. But I think once you create an exception, then how does a pharmacist necessarily know
Right.
it, why they check in VPMS to see if the person's been prescribed something. They know it's a drug that should be reported. So it essentially, to me, it really undermines, and unless they create some kind of a system, that I don't really see how they would do it without putting that information in a database someplace, which seems to be what they're concerned about here, is having the VPMS information used for purposes adverse to those who are getting it for gender affirming care. It really kind of does away with that drug being managed under VPMS at all, in a sense.
David, is privacy the rationale?
Well, I think privacy and concerns that, there could be people who are opposed to gender affirming care might be looking to, identify people who've had gender affirming care, or
But it's very, very protected. Okay,
It's not.
thanks.
I need to speak to this because
It
people need
isn't?
to know
Oh,
this.
okay.
The stated goal of the federal administration that is in power currently is to eliminate, quote, transgender ideology, which is inseparable from transgender people, from all facets of American life. The Lemkin Institute for the Prevention of Genocide has issued an alert that trans people in the United States are at risk for genocide. This is not trivial. And if people want examples of things that have already been done to make life much harder for trans people, I can provide plenty that go beyond the scope of what we have time for today. So one of the ways of identifying trans people is to look at who's getting hormones and cross-reference it with birth data. And so this is not trivial. And personally, I'm much less worried about a small number of people who may somehow find a way to abuse testosterone. The people that I have known who have abused it have not gotten it from physicians. They've gotten it from some guy at the gym or some way of getting it on the internet that flies under the radar from a separate country or whatever. I'm much less concerned about a small number of people abusing testosterone than I am providing a means of identifying trans people in the current federal environment. So what I would ask is that people can have any opinion about this that they want. I would ask that the board not take a position against it. If people want to support it as individuals or oppose it as individuals, that's great. But I think there's some real risk to trans people here, and I don't want the board to facilitate that.
Thank you for that information, Evan.
And I in my AG role also advise VPMS. VPMS has very strong state protections, but even before the current administration, federal authorities have been able to overcome state protections once, most recently and most concerningly in New Hampshire, by subpoenaing the individual manager of New Hampshire's prescription monitoring system individually and seeking contempt of court that way.
Wow.
So we have very strong protections for our prescription monitoring system in state law, but federal authorities have no restrictions on seeking to overcome those.
Wow.
Any other discussion we need to touch upon today? Anything else that you're going to need us to act on, David, before any of this legislative stuff?
No, if there was anything, I'd bring it up to you. Like I said, I'll let you know if anything comes up with test to treat, and there's a need for immediate input.
Okay, I think that sounds good. Well, if nobody has anything else, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Great. Thank you all for your patience and your input.
Thank you.
David, thanks for all your research too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
absolutely.
David.
Fantastic.
All right, everybody. Have a great month.
So long, everyone.
Bye-bye.